The studio lights burned bright, casting a warm glow over the set of The Kelly Clarkson Show. The audience buzzed with anticipation, their murmurs blending with the hum of cameras and crew adjusting last-minute details. Kelly Clarkson, in a navy, blazer and jeans, stood near the stage's edge, her signature grin wide as she chatted with a producer. Across from her, Gwen Stefani sat poised on a sleek white chair, her platinum hair catching the light, her red lipstick sharp against her pale skin. She adjusted her oversized hoop earrings, her posture relaxed but her eyes scanning the room with a guarded edge. The air felt charged, not just with the usual pre-show energy, but with something heavier, unspoken. Kelly had invited Gwen to promote her latest solo album, a project that marked her return to music after years of balancing No Doubt's reunion tours, her Las Vegas residency, and her role on The Voice. The audience expected a light-hearted chat, maybe some banter about Gwen's fashion line or her life with Blake Shelton. But beneath the surface, there was history. Gwen and Kelly weren't strangers. They'd crossed paths on The Voice, where their competitive streaks as coaches had sparked more than a few off-camera tensions. Nothing public, nothing overt, but whispers among the crew hinted at egos clashing over song choices and contestant critiques. Tonight, though, was supposed to be different. A fresh slate, a chance to celebrate Gwen's comeback. The show kicked off smoothly. Kelly's opening monologue landed well, her self-deprecating humor about her Texas roots drawing laughs. Gwen watched from her seat, clapping along, her smile practiced but not quite reaching her eyes. When Kelly introduced her, the crowd erupted. Gwen strode to the center of the stage, her black leather skirt and studied jacket screaming rockstar confidence. She hugged Kelly, the embrace quick but polite, and settled into the guest chair. The first few minutes were textbook talk show fare. Kelly asked about the album's inspiration. Gwen shared stories about late-night studio sessions, and the audience ate it up. But then Kelly leaned forward, her tone shifting from bubbly to curious. "So, Gwen, this album feels super personal, right? Like you're digging into some raw stuff. There's a track, Break the Mirror, that's got fans talking. Some say it's about your time on The Voice, maybe even shading some folks you worked with. Care to spill the tea on that?" The question landed like a match in dry grass. Gwen's smile froze, her fingers tightening around the armrest. The audience laughed, expecting a playful dodge, but Gwen's eyes narrowed, her lips parting slightly as if weighing her response. "I don't know about shading anyone," Gwen said, her voice low, measured. "The song's about breaking free, owning your truth. People can interpret it however they want, but I'm not here to throw punches." Her tone carried a bite, and Kelly's eyebrows shot up. The host leaned back, her laugh a little too loud. "Oh, come on, Gwen, you know how fans get. They love a little drama. So, no voice secrets in there. Not even a tiny jab at, say, a certain cowboy we all know." The audience hooted, catching the Blake reference, but Gwen's face hardened. She tilted her head, her voice dropping colder. "If I've got something to say, Kelly, I say it. I don't hide it in lyrics." The tension crackled. Kelly, sensing the shift, tried to pivot, but her next question about Gwen's past with No Doubt only seemed to dig deeper into old wounds. Gwen's answers grew shorter, her posture stiffer. The audience, still clapping on cue, started to sense something was off. Backstage, producers exchanged glances. This wasn't the fluffy promo segment they'd planned. Kelly, usually a master at keeping things light, seemed to lean into the discomfort, her questions probing just a little too far. And Gwen, never one to back down, was meeting her halfway, her words sharp, her patience thinning. By the time the first commercial break hit, the set felt like a pressure cooker, and everyone knew the real clash was still coming. As the show cut to commercial, the studio's energy shifted. The audience, still buzzing from the sharp exchange, whispered among themselves, their excitement tinged with unease. Gwen Stefani leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed tightly, staring straight ahead as a makeup artist darted in to touch up her powder. Kelly Clarkson, meanwhile, was all motion, hopping up to confer with a producer near the stage's edge, her hands gesturing animatedly. The crew moved fast, resetting cameras and adjusting lights, but the air felt thick, like everyone was waiting for the next spark to ignite. When the show resumed, Kelly bounded back to her mark, her smile bright but her eyes cautious. "Welcome back, y'all," she called, the audience cheering on cue. Gwen offered a tight smile, her fingers tapping rhythmically on her knee. Kelly dove right back in, her voice warm but probing. "So, Gwen, we were talking about your album, but I gotta ask, you've been in this game a long time. No Doubt, solo stuff. The Voice, what's been the toughest part of staying true to yourself in an industry that's always pulling you in different directions?" It was a softball question, meant to smooth things over. But Gwen's expression didn't soften. "Tough's part of it," Gwen said, her voice cool, deliberate. "You figure out who you are, and you hold on to it. People try to box you in, tell you what you should be, but I've never been good at that. I do me, always have." The audience clapped, but there was an edge to her words, like she was answering more than the question. Kelly nodded, her smile faltering just a fraction. Totally get that, she said, leaning forward. But like sometimes, don't you feel the pressure to play the game? Like on The Voice, all that competition, the coaching rivalries. That's gotta test you, right? Gwen's eyes flashed, and the audience caught it, a ripple of murmurs spreading. I don't play games, she said, her voice sharper now. On The Voice, I showed up for the artists, not the drama. Some people love stirring that pot, though. The jab hung in the air, and Kelly's laugh was a beat too late. Whoa, okay, shade alert, Kelly said, trying to keep it light, but her tone carried a challenge. Come on, Gwen, you're saying you never got caught up in the rivalries. Not even a little with, say, me. The audience gasped, then laughed, egging it on. Gwen's lips pressed into a thin line. If I've got a problem, Kelly, you'd know it. I don't do subtle. The crowd hooted, sensing the heat, but Gwen wasn't smiling. Kelly, still grinning, pushed further. Oh, I know you're direct, girl, but let's be real. We've had our moments, right? Like that time we went head to head over that country singer. You were fierce. The mention of their voice days hit a nerve. Gwen's posture stiffened, her voice dropping low. Fierce is one way to put it. Some might say others were playing dirty. The accusation landed hard, and the audience's cheers turned to shocked murmurs. Kelly's smile froze, her eyes narrowing. Dirty. Whoa, that's a big word. Care to unpack that? The challenge was clear now, no pretense of friendliness. Gwen leaned forward, her voice steady but laced with steel. I'm just saying, some people will do anything to win, even if it means bending the truth. I don't operate like that. The audience was on edge, the applause scattered. Backstage, producers were gesturing frantically, one mouthing to Kelly to wrap it up, but Kelly wasn't backing down. Okay, Gwen, let's keep it real. If you're throwing shots, own it. Who's bending the truth? The silence that followed was deafening. Gwen's eyes locked on Kelly's, her jaw tight. For a moment, it seemed like she might let it go, pivot to something safer, but then she leaned back, her voice cold. You want names? Maybe look in the mirror. The audience gasped, a few cheers breaking through. Kelly's face flushed, her laugh sharp and forced. Wow, okay, we're going there, she said, but the humor was gone. The stage manager signaled for another break, and as the cameras cut, Gwen stood abruptly, her chair scraping loud against the floor. She didn't look back as she strode toward the wings, leaving Kelly staring after her, the set crackling with unresolved tension. The commercial break hit like a pause button, but the tension on the set of the Kelly Clarkson show didn't dissipate. Backstage, Gwen Stefani stood near a craft services table, her arms crossed, her face a mask of controlled fury. A handler hovered nearby, offering a water bottle, but Gwen waved it off, her eyes fixed on some distant point. The crew buzzed around her, keeping their distance, their whispers barely audible over the hum of equipment. Across the studio, Kelly Clarkson sat on the edge of the stage, her head bent close to a producer, her hands gesturing sharply. The audience, still seated, was alive with chatter, phones already out, some filming the chaos, others typing furiously. The moment already leaking onto social media, the stage manager called for places, and Kelly hopped up, brushing her hands on her jeans, her smile back in place but strained. Gwen, however, didn't move right away. Her team exchanged glances, one assistant leaning in to murmur something, but Gwen shook her head, her jaw set. She walked back to her chair, her steps deliberate, her leather skirt catching the light. The audience clapped as the cameras rolled again, but the energy was different now, less celebratory, more like spectators at a boxing match waiting for the next round. Kelly launched into the segment with forced enthusiasm. All right, y'all, we're back with the one and only Gwen Stefani. The crowd cheered, but Gwen's smile was thin, her posture rigid. Kelly, undeterred, pivoted to safer ground. So, Gwen, let's talk about your fashion line, because you're killing it with those designs. What's the vibe you're going for this season? It was a clear attempt to reset, to steer away from the earlier fire. But Gwen wasn't biting. It's about being authentic, she said, her voice flat, wearing what feels right, not what someone else thinks you should. The answer was vague, almost dismissive, and Kelly's eyes flickered with frustration. She leaned forward, her tone still light, but with an edge. Love that. Authenticity's huge. But, you know, sometimes people misread intentions, right? Like they think you're throwing shade when you're just being real. Ever deal with that? The question was a trap, dressed up as casual, and the audience leaned in, sensing the undercurrent. Gwen's eyes locked on Kelly's, her fingers still on the armrest. All the time, she said, her voice low, deliberate. Some people project their own stuff onto you, make it about them. I just keep it moving, the crowd murmured, catching the subtext. Kelly's smile tightened, but she pressed on. Okay, but in this industry, don't you have to call it out sometimes? Like, set the record straight. Gwen's laugh was sharp, humorless. I don't waste energy on that. If someone's got a problem with me, they can say it to my face. I'm right here. The audience erupted, Some cheering, others gasping, the divide clear. Kelly's face flushed again, her hands gripping the edge of her desk. "Oh, I'm all about face-to-face," she said, her voice rising slightly. "But sometimes, Gwen, it feels like you're saying a lot without saying it. You know, that was it." Gwen's patience snapped. She leaned forward, her voice cutting through the studio like a blade. "Kelly, if you've got something to say, just say it. Don't dance around it. I'm not here for games." The audience went wild, the noise swallowing Kelly's attempt at a response. She tried to laugh it off, but her eyes betrayed her. Flashing with irritation, "I'm just keeping it real, Gwen," she said, her tone sharp now. "Thought we were having a conversation." Gwen shook her head, her voice icy. "This isn't a conversation. It's an ambush." The word hung heavy, and the crowd's reaction was a mix of cheers and stunned silence. Backstage, producers were in a frenzy, one signaling to cut to commercial, another whispering into a headset. Kelly opened her mouth to respond, but Gwen was already standing, her chair pushed back with a screech. "I'm done," she said, loud enough for the mics to catch. She ripped off her mic pack, dropping it on the chair, and stormed toward the stage exit. The audience was on its feet, some shouting encouragement, others filming. Kelly sat frozen, her smile gone, as the director yelled for a break. The cameras cut, but the chaos was just beginning, the studio a live wire of shock and speculation. The studio plunged into chaos as the cameras cut to commercial. Gwen Stefani's exit left a void on the set, her empty chair a stark symbol of the confrontation that had just unfolded. The audience was a mix of stunned silence and frenzied chatter, phones glowing as people recorded the aftermath or typed out posts, the moment already rippling across social media. Backstage, crew members scrambled, some trying to track Gwen down. Others huddled around monitors, replaying the heated exchange. Kelly Clarkson remained at her desk, her face a mask of composure, but her hands betrayed her, clenching and unclenching as a producer leaned in, speaking urgently in her ear. Gwen, meanwhile, was a blur of motion down the corridor, her boots clicking against the polished floor. Her team trailed behind, one assistant clutching a phone, another trying to keep up while juggling a tablet. "Gwen, hold up," the assistant called, but Gwen didn't slow, her expression set, her eyes blazing. She pushed through a set of double doors into a green room, slamming them shut behind her. Inside, she paced, her breath sharp, her hands running through her hair. The room was quiet, save for the muffled sounds of the studio beyond. But her mind was loud, replaying the exchange, the pointed questions, the way Kelly had pushed and pushed. Back on set, the stage manager was counting down to the end of the break. Kelly stood, smoothing her blazer, her smile returning but brittle. "We good?" she asked the producer, her voice low. The producer nodded, but her eyes were wary, darting toward the wings where Gwen was supposed to reappear. The audience, still buzzing, settled as the lights brightened, the show's theme music kicking in. Kelly took her mark, her voice bright but strained as she addressed the crowd. "All right, folks, let's keep this party going." The applause was hesitant, the energy off, everyone waiting to see if Gwen would return. She didn't. The stage manager signaled for Kelly to move forward, and she pivoted to a new segment, introducing a musical guest with forced enthusiasm. But the audience wasn't buying it. Their attention split between Kelly's performance and the empty chair beside her. Social media was already exploding, clips of Gwen's "I'm done" and mic drops circulating, hashtags like hashtag Gwen vs Kelly and hashtag talkshow takedown trending. Fans dissected every word, some praising Gwen's no-nonsense attitude, others calling her oversensitive, while Kelly's supporters fired back, accusing Gwen of dodging accountability. In the green room, Gwen sat on a couch, her phone in hand, scrolling through the early posts. Her assistant hovered, reading out messages from her team, urging her to make a statement, to get ahead of the narrative. But Gwen shook her head, her voice low. "Let them talk. I said what I said." She wasn't rattled, not exactly, but there was a weight to her, a mix of defiance and exhaustion. The assistant hesitated, then mentioned the producers were asking if she'd return for the final segment. Gwen's laugh was sharp. "Final. They got enough out of me." Back on set, Kelly powered through, her jokes landing flatter than usual, her energy a little too manic. She avoided mentioning Gwen directly, but the audience could feel the absence, the unresolved tension hanging like fog. During a quieter moment, as the musical guest performed, Kelly's eyes flicked to the side, where a producer signaled something, her face unreadable. The show was live, no time to edit out the mess, and the crew knew it was only a matter of minutes before the world weighed in. As the segment wrapped, Kelly thanked the audience, her voice steady but her smile not quite reaching her eyes. The cameras cut, and she exhaled, her shoulders slumping as she turned to the producer. "What now?" she asked, her tone clipped. The producer didn't answer, just gestured toward the monitors, where clips of Gwen's exit were already looping. On news sites, the fallout was inevitable, and both women knew it. Gwen, still in the green room, stood, grabbing her bag, ready to leave the studio behind. But the story wasn't over, not by a long shot, and the next move would depend on who spoke first and what they chose to say. Gwen Stefani pushed through the studio's back exit, the heavy door clanging shut behind her. The Los Angeles air hit her like a wave, warm and thick, but it did little to cool the fire still burning in her chest. Her team trailed close. One assistant typing furiously on a phone, another scanning the lot for their car. Paparazzi were already lurking near the gate. Cameras flashing as Gwen slid into the back seat of a black SUV, her face shielded by oversized sunglasses. She didn't speak, her silence heavy, as the vehicle pulled away, leaving the chaos of the Kelly Clarkson show in its wake. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, notifications piling up, but she ignored it, staring out the window, her mind replaying the confrontation, every word a fresh cut. Back at the studio, Kelly Clarkson wrapped the show. Her final wave to the audience, practiced but strained. The camera stopped rolling, and she dropped her smile, her jaw tight as she headed backstage. Producers swarmed, one handing her a tablet with social media analytics, another suggesting damage control. The clips were everywhere now. Exit the top story on entertainment sites. Dissected frame by frame. Kelly skimmed a headline, her lips pressing into a thin line. "They're eating this up," she muttered, handing the tablet back. Her team urged her to post something, anything, to shape the narrative, but Kelly shook her head. "I'm not playing their game," she said, her voice low, resolute. Online. The internet was a battlefield. Gwen's fans rallied, praising her for standing her ground, calling Kelly's questions manipulative. A setup to provoke. Kelly's supporters countered, accusing Gwen of being too sensitive, unable to handle a little heat. Memes of Gwen's mic drops spread like wildfire, some mocking her, others crowning her a queen. Talk show analysts weighed in, speculating about old voice grudges, while gossip blogs dug up every interaction between the two women, from red carpet smiles to tense coaching moments. The story was no longer just about the show. It was a cultural moment, a clash of titans with no clear victor. Gwen, now miles from the studio, finally glanced at her phone. Her team had drafted a statement, something neutral about focusing on her music, but she waved it off. "No," she said, her voice firm. "I'm not apologizing for being real." Her assistant hesitated, then showed her a clip of Kelly's post-show interview, already circulating. Kelly, still in her blazer, had faced reporters outside the studio. Her tone measured but pointed. "I ask real questions," she'd said. "If someone can't handle that, that's on them." The jab wasn't lost on Gwen, whose eyes narrowed as she watched. She tossed the phone onto the seat, her silence louder than any response. Meanwhile, Kelly was in her dressing room, door closed, scrolling through the same clips. Her team was split, some pushing for a full statement, others warning her to let it die down. But Kelly wasn't one to stay quiet. She opened her phone, her fingers hovering over the keyboard, tempted to fire back. Instead, she set it down, her mind racing. She'd meant to challenge Gwen, sure, but not to spark a war. Yet the more she thought about Gwen's words, the accusation of playing dirty, the hotter her frustration burned. She'd built her career on being authentic, and now Gwen had painted her as the villain on live TV. The story was spiraling, and both women knew it. Gwen's team was already fielding calls from outlets begging for comment, while Kelly's was prepping for the next day's show, knowing every word she said would be scrutinized. The public was hungry for more, their divide growing sharper with every post, every retweet. Somewhere in the noise, the truth of what had happened between them, the years of unspoken slights, was getting buried. But neither was ready to back down, and the next move, whether a statement, a song, or silence, would only fan the flames. As Gwen's car sped toward her hotel and Kelly left the studio under a barrage of camera flashes, the world watched, waiting for the next chapter in a feud that felt far from over. The fallout from the Kelly Clarkson show spread like ink and water, seeping into every corner of pop culture. Gwen Stefani, now holed up in her hotel suite, sat cross-legged on a plush couch, her laptop open to a flood of headlines. Her team buzzed. Around her, phones ringing, voices overlapping with suggestions. Issue a statement. Do a live stream. Turn the drama into promo for the album. Gwen listened, her face unreadable, but her silence was a decision in itself. She wasn't ready to speak, not yet. The weight of the clash, the years of tension with Kelly, the public's rabid dissection, it all pressed down on her. But she'd been here before, navigating storms of scrutiny, and she knew rushing a response could backfire. Across town, Kelly Clarkson was in her own orbit of chaos. Her team had set up a war room of sorts in her management's office, monitors tracking social media metrics, PR advisors pitching angles to spin the narrative. Kelly paced, her boots scuffing the floor, her frustration palpable. "I didn't start this," she said, her voice sharp, cutting through the chatter. "I asked questions, like I always do. She's the one who made it a thing." Her manager nodded, but his eyes were on the numbers, the millions of views on clips of Gwen's exit. The story was bigger than either of them now, a beast fed by fan wars and clickbait. Kelly's instinct was to fight back, to go live and set the record straight, but her team urged caution, warning that more fuel would only make the fire burn hotter. Online, the feud was a living thing, evolving with every hour. Talk show recaps dissected body language, zooming in on Gwen's clenched jaw, Kelly's forced smiles. Fan forums buzzed, with theories, some digging into old Voice episodes for clues of bad blood, others speculating about Blake Shelton's role, though he'd stayed silent. A few outlets ran pieces praising Gwen's authenticity, calling her exit a power move, while others painted her as petulant, unable to handle tough questions. Kelly, meanwhile, was caught in a similar split, lauded as a truth-teller by some, labeled a provocateur by others. The hashtags multiplied, hashtag Team Gwen and hashtag Team Kelly trending neck and neck, each side digging in. Gwen's phone lit up with a text from a friend, a screenshot of Kelly's latest interview clip, where she doubled down, calling the incident a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. Gwen's lips twitched, not quite a smile. She could feel the chess game unfolding, each move calculated, each word weaponized. Her team pressed again for a response, suggesting a subtle post about rising above drama, but Gwen shook her head. "Let her talk," she said, her voice low, final. Instead, she opened her notes app, jotting down lyrics, the raw edge of the day fueling her. If she was going to speak, it would be through her music, not a soundbite. Kelly, though, was itching to act. She drafted a tweet, something about staying true to herself, but deleted it before sending, her thumb hovering over the screen. Her team was split, some pushing for a conciliatory tone, others wanting her to lean into her boldness, to own the moment. She scrolled through the comments under her last post, a mix of support and vitriol, and felt the sting of being cast as the bad guy. She'd always prided herself on being real, but now she wondered if she'd misjudged Gwen, if her questions had crossed a line she hadn't seen. As the day wound down, both women stood at a crossroads. The world waited for their next move, but neither was ready to give it. Gwen closed her laptop, her focus shifting to her music, a new song taking shape that would say what words alone couldn't. Kelly, meanwhile, stepped away from her phone, her mind already on the next show, determined to move forward, even if the shadow of the clash lingered. The feud, for now, was a standoff, its resolution unwritten. But in the quiet moments, both knew the truth. This wasn't just about one show, one question, one exit. It was about two women, their paths tangled by competition and pride, each refusing to bend, their story far from finished.